President Biden said on day one of his administration that the United States would revitalize our alliances and re-engage with the world to meet the great challenges of our time. And on Sunday, the President will depart for his next major trip overseas at a time when we have indeed regained our global standing as a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. This trip will reflect that progress, and it will showcase the President's leadership on the world stage. First, the President will travel to the United Kingdom. While in London, he will meet with King Charles at Windsor Castle and engage with a forum that will focus on mobilizing climate finance, especially bringing private finance off the sidelines for clean energy deployment and adaptation in developing countries. He will also meet with Prime Minister Sunak to consult on a range of bilateral and global issues. Next, the President will travel to Vilnius, Lithuania, to attend the NATO summit. This will take place against the backdrop of Russia's continuing brutal war against Ukraine. He will hold a bilateral meeting with Lithuanian President Nausėda. He will then meet with all of the NATO leaders at the summit, as well as a number of NATO partners from Europe and from the Indo-Pacific. They will discuss a range of subjects, from strengthening NATO's eastern flank to modernizing NATO's deterrence and defense capabilities. Thanks in large part to President Biden's leadership, NATO is stronger, more energized, and more united than ever. NATO is also larger than ever, with Finland having joined the alliance and Sweden soon to follow. This is important for the security and safety of the American people, because a strong NATO makes the United States and the entire world more safe and more secure. At the summit, the President and our allies will demonstrate our unity and resolve in support of Ukraine. When President Putin launched this war, he expected that Western unity would fracture, that NATO would break, that our support to Ukraine would wither over time. He was wrong. The United States has built a coalition of dozens of countries, from Europe to the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific, to help Ukraine defend against Russian aggression. And we have mobilized the security assistance Ukraine needs, including by facilitating contributions from partners and allies around the world, so that Ukraine is in the best possible position to succeed on the battlefield. We continue to stand with the people of Ukraine as they defend their sovereignty, their freedom, and their democracy. After the summit, President Biden will give a significant address in Vilnius that evening, Wednesday evening, about his vision of a strong, confident America flanked by strong, confident allies and partners taking on the significant challenges of our time, from Russia's aggression in Ukraine to the climate crisis. Finally, the President will travel to Helsinki, Finland, where he will meet with the President of Finland, Niinistö, and participate in a U.S. Nordic Leaders Summit. In these meetings, the President will advance our close cooperation with the Nordic countries on shared regional security objectives, along with shared efforts on technology, health, climate, and clean energy. So we're looking forward to a busy week in Europe, and we're looking forward to the President being able to further solidify, strengthen, and give momentum to the strong, united alliance that has been standing up so effectively against Russian aggression. As I mentioned, because we've seen all of these reports on the provision of cluster munitions to Ukraine, I will leave it to the Pentagon to make a formal announcement later this afternoon for the next drawdown package, and to go into the details of that drawdown package and the specifics on the types of munitions being provided. But I will use this opportunity here today to make a few points. First, we base our security assistance decision on Ukraine's needs on the ground. And Ukraine needs artillery to sustain its offensive and defensive operations. Artillery is at the core of this conflict. Ukraine is firing thousands of rounds a day to defend against Russian efforts to advance, and also to support its own efforts to retake its sovereign territory. We have provided Ukraine with a historic amount of unitary artillery rounds, and we are ramping up domestic production of these rounds. We've already seen substantial increases in production, but this process will continue to take time, and it will be critical to provide Ukraine with a bridge of supplies while our domestic production is ramped up. We will not leave Ukraine defenseless at any point in this conflict, period. Second, Russia has been using cluster munitions since the start of this war to attack Ukraine. Russia's been using cluster munitions with high dud or failure rates of between 30 and 40%. In this environment, Ukraine has been requesting cluster munitions in order to defend its own sovereign territory. The cluster munitions that we would provide have dud rates far below what Russia is doing, is providing, not higher than 2.5%. And third, we are closely coordinating with Ukraine as it has requested these munitions. Ukraine is committed to post-conflict demining efforts to mitigate any potential harm to civilians, and this will be necessary regardless of whether the United States provides these munitions or not, because of Russia's widespread use of cluster munitions. We will have to continue to assist Ukraine with demining efforts no matter what, given the significant use of cluster munitions already perpetrated by Russia. So the bottom line is this. We recognize that cluster munitions create a risk of civilian harm from unexploded ordnance. This is why we've deferred the decision for as long as we could. But there is also a massive risk of civilian harm if Russian troops and tanks roll over Ukrainian positions and take more Ukrainian territory and subjugate more Ukrainian civilians because Ukraine does not have enough artillery. That is intolerable to us. Ukraine would not be using these munitions in some foreign land. This is their country they're defending. These are their citizens they're protecting. And they are motivated to use any weapon system they have in a way that minimizes risks to those citizens. So with that, I would be happy to take your questions. Annie.
Thank you so much. Annie.